Hi, thank you all for having me. Ronaldo, thank you for that great introduction. I have 15 minutes, so I'm going to jump right into this presentation, and I will start with a land acknowledgement. We would like to begin today by recognizing and acknowledging that we are on the lands of the Peoria, Kaskatchewa, Picankashaw, Wea, Miami, Mascoutin, Odawa, Suak, Meskwaki, Kickapoo, Potawatomi, Ojibwa, and Chickasaw nations. These lands were the traditional territory of these native nations prior to their forced removal. These lands continue to carry the stories of these nations and their struggles for survival and identity. As a land-grant institution, the University of Illinois has a particular responsibility to acknowledge the peoples of these lands as well as the histories of dispossession that have allowed for the growth of this institution for the past 150 years. We are also obligated to reflect on and actively address these histories and the role that this university has played in shaping them. This acknowledgement and the centering of Native peoples is a start as we move forward for the next 150 years. Right now, I'm going to share my screen. I am working, let me start first by saying, and I'm going to start my clock to make sure that I am on time. Let me first start by saying that I am working with a particular aesthetic thinking about 5 ideas that any liberated people, any free nation of people have 5 things that they are working with that I have found. 1, they have sovereign land. They have a government that legislates the laws of that land. They have a military that defends the interest of their land. They have a currency, their own currency that allows for global trade and commerce, and their God looks like them. This is a burgeoning theory as I am a visual artist and I'm looking to, as I say, calculate the sensory aesthetics of Black liberation. I do not believe that, and I'm also coming from a perspective that I believe that we have done a really good job in our intersectional thinking and defining future or progressive ways of thinking about gender and sexuality. However, I believe that we have neglected defining what our Blackness is and what our liberation is and what our nationhood is. Also included that is the dismantling of class. I'm also a crate digger. I've been collecting albums for the last I was going to say 150 years. I've been collecting records for the last 30 years. And I inherited a large portion of my collection. So these have influenced my art practice. These are some of the aesthetics. And what you see, this drawing here is a depiction of Grandma's Hands. Shouts out to the Bill Withers song and also the Gil Scott-Heron song depicting a Black grandmother laying hands on her Black grandchild as he is looking through the lens of hip hop, and as his hands are up and surrender to the police. This is a work in progress, and when you will understand this more when this piece is done. People ask me where queerness is situated in my work, and I like to think about how anytime you see maybe some of the symbols of any levels of queerness, you will also see the Black liberation flag. You will see the red, black, green, and yellow. And this is a way that I'd like to think about, once again, in thinking about how we are defining ourselves, also has to be connected to our the way that we think about Black liberation. I am working with a working definition of DEI. And this is, I'm not going to read this, but you can read this for yourself. This is how I'm beginning to structure my art exhibitions as I am thinking, as I am also involved in the local community, thinking about these issues, thinking actively on my campus on the unit level of art and design, but also on the college level of fine and applied arts. So these are some of the artists who have influenced my work. Maddie Clairween, who is very well known for the Miles Davis's Bitches Brew cover and the Santana Abraxas cover, but also Pedro Bell and Overton Lloyd, who founded the aesthetic of Parliament Funkadelic. And this is another one of the Motor Booty Affair album. And these are the pop out aesthetics of this. I'm going to go through this really, really quickly to make sure that we are on time. I'm also working in the tradition of already established theories and manifestos. Here you will see Emory Douglas's manifesto, Emory Douglas, the Minister of Culture for the Black Panther Party. And point 6 and 9 are two that I like to point to. I like to create art of social concern that a child can even understand, and create art that challenges the colonization of the imagination. I'm also looking at W.E. Du Bois's criteria of Negro art, where he is, for example, thinking about, I don't give a care or a damn about any art that is not used for propaganda. I can challenge that, but I'm also working in that thinking. And I'm also, I heard the 10-point program the Black Panther Party mentioned earlier. We are still fighting for these particular points in our liberation. So I am working according to that thinking as well. This is a map of my beginning theorizations that looks at the intersections of systems that we've created in colonialism, or that we've brought across the Middle Passage. So the 12% nation of gods and earth, the 12 jewels, beginning with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and leads to love, peace, and happiness, which we all want. But also looking at the framing of that through the 5 primary tenets of hip hop, and also looking through the Nguza Saba as a framing mechanism for my beginning thinking. These are some examples of what I consider the Black liberated imagination, or the decolonized Black imagination looks like. You will see these black fists rising into the cosmos out of this black angel and out of this woman's head, which is exploding with vibrant color and nature, etc. And the middle piece is showing at the Smithsonian in the fall in an exhibition called Futures for their 175th anniversary, the first museum, which is the Arts and Industry building. And it depicts a Black woman with the Bell rocket belt, listening to the cosmos. We are seeing her in a liminal space where she is asked a question to the cosmos and she is listening for an answer. And that conch shell that you see above her imagination is a shout out to one of my favorite artists and inspirations, Charles White. These are 2 more albums that I inherited, and I imagine here that Rick James and the Mary Jane Girls have busted out of L7 and escaped into the Garden of Love. Working with that same inspiration, I created the Most Death Star, obviously inspired by Star Wars Death Star, with a remix and thinking about Most Def and as an interaction with that, with a Black planet that has landed in the city of Chicago. And this adjacent piece is a really quick, easy, understandable way to think about a Black pyramid city floating in space. Some of these images I created at this time were created to jumpstart the Black imagination, to think about the beginnings of what Afrofuturism should or maybe could look like. This is some of my other aesthetics. You're looking at Revelation 16:1, and that was also inspired by the Parliament album Chocolate City, for example, and the Mothership Connection album, which looks at, shouts out to the Black Panther movie, where a Bugatti spaceship landed in the hood. Well, that was a shout out to this album cover, I believe. These are some other album art, other pieces from albums that I've created for friends of mine. This is album art that I created for them. I'm going to go through this really quickly just to stay on time. Larry Levan is a major influence. Larry Levan was the DJ of the Paradise Garage in New York, and I imagine him conjuring the marginalized community through the sound of the record into the Paradise Garage, which, once it was demolished, appeared on Sun Ra's The Other Side of Time. These pieces here, I'm also working a lot with I'm collaborating with other artists. These are 10, I believe, I got several prompts from a really good friend of mine and mentor, Cynthia Oliver, for her show Virago Mandem. And she was looking at Black masculinity through a Caribbean lens. These next two slides are from a gallery exhibition that appeared, a billboard exhibition that appeared in Buffalo this past summer, in the summer of 2020, called hashtag Black Matters, where I created 12 prompts that thought about the moment and what we might want to consider moving forward. So you see a shout out here of this Black man, for example, ripping off the white mask, which is obviously a shout out to Frantz Fanon. These are some other images from this exhibition. I am a comic creator as well, and these are the first 4 books that dropped through Abrams' books, and my really good friend John Jennings' line of books, which he curates, called Megascope. My book is Across the Tracks, that was written by Alvern Ball, and this book, all of these books actually are on sale now. I wanted to show this page so that you can see my process. I am working on the iPad Pro, and I'm sketching out a layer. I'm going to another layer, creating the full inks, and I work with a collaborative team, my son and some former students who help with the coloring of this book. These are some book covers that I've either made art for or used existing art for. So my goal is to be one of the key people in the Afrofuturism movement and helping to define the aesthetics of Black liberated futures. I'm also working with an idea, what do Black utopias look like? So one of the things I argue is that the only place that Black people are free globally is in the decolonized Black imagination. So my goal is to illustrate what that looks like. So I'm looking at here, for example, King's Mountaintop, where he said he'd been to the mountaintop and seen the promised land, and he may not get there with us. However, he did not leave us a longitude and latitude of that location. So what does that look like? What does Prince's erotic city look like? And even looking at the ideas of Black death as a utopian space, because many of us look to die in order to receive peace. These are works in progress. And this is a piece from my thesis exhibition in 2015 called Building Black Utopia. We will have to look at our past and our present in order to imagine what our futures look like. I believe that our future is in our past, but it is not free of trauma. This piece called Dark Sankofa looks at a Black woman looking toward an African-centered Saturn as the Afrofuture is emerging and transforming before our eyes, but she is also embracing the traumatic past. The great white shark, which is now in a corporate suit, emerging from bloody waters, those sharks that reference the following of slave ships during the Middle Passage. We have to bring our trauma into the Black liberated future in order to dismantle it. This is what I am thinking about. I also believe that this is a piece called We Got Next, and it's a declaration of what we got next in. But I'm also looking at what does next look like, and it becomes an abstraction really quickly. But the declaration includes statements like, we have next in defining our neighborhoods and policing our neighborhoods. We got next in defining our education. We got next in defining the depictions of Blackness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are some pieces from my current exhibition where I'm looking at scholars that I grew up on and scholars that have influenced me even in current years. Chancellor Williams and the reconstruction of Black civilization, Robert F. Williams and Mabel Ola Robinson, for example, and thinking about Black self-defense, which is mandatory for us. And also looking at John Henry Clark as a Black historian as a Sankofa, and looking at our Black psychology through Dr. Frances Cress Welsing and Black sociology through Frantz Fanon again. I believe that Black liberated future also looks like documenting my failed attempts at planting. Therefore, I got a garden this year, and I've gone to a pescatarian, vegetarian, and vegan diet, and I am documenting my journey so that the community can see it. I believe that Afrofuturism looks like this level of transparency. And in closing, I want to say that I believe that white supremacy, the philosophy of white supremacy, which is backed by the system of racism, is a particular algorithm which is enforced by our government, which is legislated by our government, enforced by our military and police, and indoctrinated through colonizing religions, and is also taught through us from a very early age through our education. If that is an algorithm, then so is the freedom from our trauma and colonization. And I want to say thank you. You can hit me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And of course, we got to end on Grace Jones because she is dope in many, many ways. And I am also a slave to the rhythm. Thank you very, very much.